Well, hello everyone. This is Bob Villarreal, and thank you for joining me for the tour for Part W for the third letter. Now, this is March 11th of 2015. I haven't. I'm thinking back all the tours I made for this particular book and the one before. Um, I have never mentioned the date, but okay, so it's March 11th. Well, here we are. We're sitting above Atacama, San Pedro Atacama today, and this is where we ended um, Part V, that particular tour. Remember, it was the interview that Demerida and Anko Huala had with Apani the Indian. Just a fascinating thing. Now, I think I also mentioned that if you're ever in northern Chile, don't forget to go to San Pedro de Atacama. It's just a fascinating place. Well, okay, just a little thing about the tours again. I do my best not to mention what's going on in the book. That isn't the purpose of the tours. The purpose is for you the reader to get an idea pictorially and via Google Earth as to the kind of territory and terrain the expedition went over. So anyway, well, having said that, I think I mentioned to you I've been to San Pedro de Atacama, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. So let's move out. They left Atacama on December 19th, 1536, and they left for Calama. Now, just outside of town, oh, it's several miles, um, they came to a Catarpe. Now, Catarpe is another pucará. Now, these are the structures that the Inca armies, when they came through in the 1480s, there were three Inca armies of 10,000 men apiece. They built these along with villagers as little fortresses, and uh, they later used these in later years. If they had battles with natives around and so on. But the main thing is that this is further proof, just as we saw with the Pucará down in Piene, which is below Atacama. This marks the route of the Inca armies as they came in to conquer Chile. Well, let's go on to Calama. Now notice that it's pretty dry out here. I mean, there's very little water. Let's go back again. You can look at that land. Now, yeah, we'll go back. I'm going to make you seasick here. Um, let's go down a little farther here. Yes, I mentioned to you that I'd been out this way. What happened was in the mid 90s, mid 1990s, some friends in Copiapó wanted to take me out to uh, San Pedro de Atacama, go to the Tadio geysers, and I'll take you there in a minute, and then go on to Chuquicamata mine. Well, that's what we did, and we left Copiapó at midnight on the most beautiful bus I've ever been on. I've never been on a bus like this. They must have them here in the States, but this bus had everything: two meals, your seats. You could lower it into a bed yeah, for night travel. Just terrific. Anyway, we drove up, got into Antofagasta about 8 or 9 in the morning, then drove over to Calama, and there got a local bus, which was nowhere near as nice as the one traveling up and down the Pan American highways. And it took about an hour and 15 minutes to get out to Atacama. Now, it took the expedition about 7 days to get from Atacama out to Calama. Now, there's a river here. You can see it. It flows through Calama. That's the River Loa, and it's the longest in Chile at 275 miles. And the expedition is going to follow this north uh, through the Avenue of the Volcanoes for quite a ways. So they're going to be right next to the river on their travels north, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So they're going to have a pretty constant source of water here. Now, as they approached Calama, some men came out to meet the expedition. These were caciques, or chiefs, sent by the Grand Chief, the Desert Cacique, as they called him. The one who did the talking was the chief advisor to this chief. His name was Urco. And he told the captain and Pau about the Desert Cacique before they met him. And he really tells a fascinating story about this man, whose name was Huaman Palpa, who went by the shortened version of Huaman. After telling his story, Urco said that the following day there would be a feast in town to honor Almagro, Pau and their chief lieutenants. Well, you can read what happened. It was quite an affair, and Huaman impressed Almagro and Pau. He was dressed simply, had an easygoing nature, and they could tell he governed his kingdom with wisdom and probity. Just as an aside, it was here that the fate, remember there was the incident in Copiapo before they left, that a soldier went missing from Lieutenant Castilla's group. And, they went out searching for him and couldn't find him in town. Finally, Almagro said, well, we're going to have to leave. We got to get back to Peru. Leave him here. So they took off. Well, Yupan, now remember, Yupan was their guide from Copiapo up here to Calama, and he was coming up to visit a brother and that brother's wife. And so this was the end of his journey. So he took the opportunity to tell Ancahuala about this man and what happened to him. You can read about it. Now here's the amazing thing, and you can read about it in the fourth letter. And that is, this same guy popped up several years later on the Valdivia expedition. Well, I don't want to tell anything about it, but it's a fascinating story. So even though this guy went missing, but he did turn up. So just sort of an interesting little twist to things. So now let's go down to, I mentioned there's an important mine here. It's Chuquicamata, and let's go down to it right now. Now, you can see it here. I'm not going to go down any farther because sometimes that drives the Earth software bananas and it'll go crashing right into the ground. But you can see the hole there, the deep hole. And the way they process the copper or extract it from the rock, you can see down below on the right here those pools. Well, that's part of the I think it's, what the heck is the name of it? Anyway, it doesn't come to mind right away. But that's how they leach the copper from the soil. Now over here on the left, it's very extensive. Go even more. That's the housing area for all the miners. Now, what happened is we came back from the Tadio geysers, and we're going to go out there in a minute on this trip I told you about. And we took a tour of Chuquicamata mine. And it's the second largest copper mine in Chile, after Mina Escondida, and which is located some 10 miles to the west of Cerro Yuyayaco. Remember, when we went by Yuyayaco, I briefly took you out to Escondida. So that's the mine, and we took a tour. The tour was extensive. I mean, it took about an hour and a half, and our own little bus. It accommodated about 15 people or so. And they parked in a little parking lot on the edge of this deep hole here. It was, you look down into this thing, and it's really breathtaking. It's really very deep. And, they have these huge dump trucks. These dump trucks their wheels are 2 stories high. And so here are these trucks. They're traveling down into the mine, around the outskirts of it, or the sides of it, and then these giant shovels at the bottom load them up with the ore, the rocks, and then they come out back out again. And these trucks are only going about, I'd say 5, maybe 8 miles an hour. That's it. I don't know how long it would take the entire trip to get down there and back out. It must have been an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes, but it was quite a sight. Well, let's get back to the expedition. Uh, the next day, after their feasting with uh, Huaman, uh, Almagro met again with the desert cacique and made him an astounding offer. Well, you have to read about it, but remember this, that Almagro had been given Chile by the King of Spain, and he was going to have to govern it. Okay, so I believe at this time, I mean, he's getting back to Peru. He's probably thinking now, hey, I'm going to have to govern this. How am I going to do it? Am I going to do it with uh, Spanish governors or Indians or a mixture of both? Well, anyway, had been so impressed with Huaman, he made him an offer, and he had two stipulations that he required of Huaman, and Huaman agreed to both of them. Excuse me. So let's move on here. The expedition then left for Chuy Chuy. So let's go to Chuy Chuy. And they were welcomed there by the villagers. Now, Chuy Chuy was small then, I imagine. Today it only has about 500 people. Its primarily occupation is agriculture. They grow fruits and vegetables for the markets in Calama. And now, here's the Rio Salado that flows through to the south of Chuy Chuy and joins up the Rio Loa. Now I want to tell you about the most interesting part of the trip I had with my friends. This Rio Salado, the water of the river comes from what's known as the El Tatio geysers. And they're about 60 miles away to the east of Chuy Chuy. Fairly extensive, and we left. What had happened was in Atacama, San Pedro, we had stayed there 2 nights, and then took off on a tour for Tatio geysers. And then we'd eventually get back to Calama. And so we left at midnight, and got to the geyser field about 8 o'clock in the morning. They gave us some breakfast, and we walked around the geyser field. Now, I don't know if you've been to Yellowstone, but it's not anything like Yellowstone as far as number of geysers. There's about 60 geysers here. Now, Yellowstone is the largest geyser field in the world. El Tatio is third. And as I said, they only have about 60 or so. But nevertheless, some of these geysers were really shooting high into the sky. And several of them had quite a bit of water. Well, you can go out to Google Earth and go down there and look at them a little closer. And I've got some pictures on the website. So that's the Tatio geysers. Now, El Tatio means the grandfather. Okay, so okay. Now you can get tours out here if you're in Calama or at Antofagasta. You get tours. Book tours out to San Pedro de Atacama. Take the El Tatio geysers. All right, let's go back to Chuy Chuy. Now, yeah, the next day they left, going north again, and here's another Pucará. This is La Sana. Okay, this is rather extensive. There's some of the buildings down there that quarters for the people that maintain the site. So there's pictures of this on the website. So now the expedition is on the Avenue of the Volcanoes, and the elevation is going to increase to 12 to 14,000 feet. So these guys are going to be it's going to be rather cool during the days and cold at night. Plus, 12, 13, 14,000 feet, they get used to it. But you can't exert yourself too strenuously even at that altitude. So let's keep following them north. Now, Demeritus says that at a place where a stream joined the Loa from the east, two volcanoes appeared in that direction. One with steam rising from the top. So let's go up there. This had to be the Quebrada San Pedro. Now, there it is down there. You can see it. Now, if you look to the east, though, you're not going to see two volcanoes very distinctly. Now, they saw two volcanoes as they were approaching from the south, okay? So he confuses things a bit in the telling, but let's go to what he's talking about here. Okay, now you see there's actually there's three active volcanoes here. On the left, that peak is really has two summits. Okay, the one on the left is San Pedro at 20,161 feet. The one on the right is San Pablo at 19,981. Okay, but there's another peak that one can't see, and that's the one over here on the right. That's Piniri at 19,554 feet. Okay. Now I've got some pictures of these on the site. All right. Well, now let's get back to the avenue. And again, that's the River Loa down there that we're following north. And again, it's providing them water all along the way here. All right. Now, here comes another one. Now, he says a week and a half after passing another volcano to the east, Hanco mentioned something. Well, let's go to, they passed by Palpana. Palpana is another active volcano at 19,755 feet. Isn't this something? Volcano after volcano. It's just mind-boggling. Now, after passing this Palpano, Hanco made mention that two more mountains were coming to view. Excuse me. One of them was smoking. So let's go up there because now there's a couple of peaks here. The darker one on the left that's lower, that's the Minho volcano, Volcan Minho. The one over here on the right is Acanquilcha. Now, Minho is 18,568 feet. Acanquilcha is 20,262. Now, the Minho volcano is the source of the Loa. So once they pass this going north, they no longer have the Loa River with them. However, as you'll see, they come across a New Salar and Laguna streams, virtually every day. Now, I want to mention something about Acanquilcha. Get this. This, up until the early 1990s, this was the site of the highest sulfur mine in the world. And get this, the men's barracks, the miners' barracks, were at 18,000 feet. That is just unbelievable. Incredible. All right. So as I said, they excuse me, they no longer are following the Loa as they leave this area. Now, several days later, another volcano lay immediately to the east with some faint clouds of steam rising from the top. So, excuse me again, this is the active volcano Iruputunku. We're going to go down a little lower here just in a second. That's 16,939 feet. Now, this is, okay, there's the peak center right. Okay. Now, this wide expanse over here, this salar, is the Coposa. Now, an unhappy event occurred north of, right in this area, to an elder horseman by the name of Gonzalo Mejia. And Demerita describes what happened to this guy. Now, he was an old timer. He was probably in his early 30s, mid 30s. But he had been on the Cortez conquest of Mexico in 1520. So this guy had been around. But you can read about what happened to this fellow. All right, well, we continue to go here. After this, and several days after traveling several days north, de Merida mentioned seeing an animal that they had not encountered since Peru, an alpaca. They passed them by and left them to their daily feeding rituals. There were several small lagunas in this area, rich in fish and birds, a place Ayar called Huasco. Now, I wanted to mention that alpacas usually weigh in the range of 130 pounds and are smaller than a llama. Their fibers, similar to wool, are still highly prized for knitted and woven items. They roam today in southern Peru, northern Bolivia, and northern Chile. Now, the expedition in this area is crossing the Salar de Huasco. And this is an area, it's now a national park in Chile. It's a reserve for alpacas. They take care of the alpacas here. Okay. Now it was right at this time was January 25th, 1537. Now, while they were here, Ayar said they were coming on a very small geyser field. Okay. Yeah, it's had one geyser, I think. So they came upon it. Now they approached this. There were just supposed to be a couple little fountains. Of course, nothing was happening. But Ayar said, "Okay, just wait, just wait." And it took a little while, but finally the thing went off. There's a picture of it on the website. It doesn't shoot very high in the air, but still, nevertheless, it was something of a singular nature that the expedition was presented with. After leaving the geyser field, they came across what do you think? Another volcano, and here it is. Another active volcano, Ishluga, at 18,204 feet. Now, I think you've been noticing as we're going through here. There's green areas down there. There's streams. There's lagunas, small lagunas. So, and Demerita mentions that. So they always had enough water on this part of the trip. Okay, well, we're now north of here. Demerita starts remarking upon they're seeing another animal that they haven't seen since leaving Peru, and that's the vicuña. And he says it's directly south from another volcano, and here's this area right in the center of the picture. That's the Salar de Sariri, and he's talking about, I'm sure, here's yet another volcano. This is Arantica at 18,363 feet. Now, yeah, they've come across the vicuña. Now, uh, vicuñas uh, is smaller. Yeah, is smaller than Llama, alpaca, and guanaco, but its soft and warm fur is the most prized and expensive of them all. The Peruvian government today, and same with Chile, as did the Inca in the 14th and 15th centuries, closely controls the shearing of these animals. These days, they allow it only once every 2 years. Now, this whole area here in Chile is a vicuña reserve, just like the alpaca reserve to the south. All right, fascinating area. Now, here they're coming at another couple of days, and they come upon Volcan Galatiri. So let's go up there. Another active volcano. Now, Galatiri is right down below us. Uh, yeah, Galatiri is at 19,918 feet, and it's one of the most active volcanoes out here. It's usually always smoking. No, it's usually smoking. So, looking at my notes here just to make sure I get this right. Its name comes from the Aymara and means sewn together by rocks. Interesting name. Okay, so now he's something interesting happened here. Uh, Diaguito, remember that's Almagro's son, and Diaguito and some of his friends, a couple of the lieutenants and a couple of the Indian uh, chiefs, uh, were about to embark upon a hunt for a vicuña. Now this was amusing and fun to read about, and the men got a kick out of it. And after weeks and weeks, every now and then something would happen to sort of break up the monotony, and this was one of those instances. So you can read about it. And they used a device called boyas, and you can read about what those are to capture the vicuña. Now, one of the evenings there, uh, it was soon after this vicuña hunt. The men's light-hearted moods changed quickly because the captain told them that he had received a warning from Pao Yu that the way to Tacna may pose danger for Manco Inca's warriors in Peru. And so from here on out, they had to set extra guards and so on just to make sure that they didn't fall prey to an ambush. Now from here, they're now going to get off the Avenue of the Volcanoes on the way to Tacna, Peru. Okay, so let's go. They leave here, and here's right here. You can see the snow. Yeah, that's another active volcano. It's Tapaca or Tapaca, elevation of 19,220 feet. Now, it sits above a small little village called Putre. Putre has about 2,000 population of 2,000, and it's a tourist center. It's a kickoff point for tours down the Avenue of the Volcanoes. And I forgot to mention, there's a couple of hotels out there. There's even remember at the Salar Coposa, there's even an airstrip, and there's a hotel there, a small hotel, and you can fly in there and stay overnight, take the tour out to the surrounding area there, and so anyway, this is the jump-off point for those tours. Now they're leaving Putre on the way to Tacna, and remember they've been at a elevation of 14,000 feet, and they're going down to pretty close to sea level. So there's going to be some drop in elevation. But notice this ground they're going over. It is really tortured. And Demeritus says they had to be very careful because some of these ravines could provide an ambush site for Indians. But they got through it, and so once they got through all of that, they are then on their way to Tacna. Now you can see the terrain down there. It drops off fairly. It looks gradually, but I mean, you're going from 13,000 feet down to let me see, Tacna is about 1,800 feet. So they were once they got to Tacna, of course, they were able to breathe a little better. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. We'll talk next time with Tour X about what happened in Tacna and then on to Arequipa and what happened there as they enter Peru. So thank you very much for joining me.